Welcome to part 2 of my review of the original Sonic miniseries. So now let's take a look at issue 2, which is a 4-part story called A Crowning Achievement. We see Sonic rushing to Sally as she has something important to tell him, and it's not because she went from blonde to brunette. She hands Sonic a chest that contains the Freedom Emeralds that are part of the Crowns of Acorn. It used to be her father's, but since he was captured, she decides to wear them and take his place until his freedom. But Sonic finds out that the Freedom Emeralds are gone and suspects that one of the soldiers is a spy. So to make things quick, Sonic uses his speed to create some heat and start off the water sprinklers and notices that one of the soldiers is rusting up. We ask him where the emeralds are, and the robot replies that he has given them to Robotnik and has scattered them to the 4 corners of Mobius, and to make sure they don't retrieve them, he's going to self-destruct, destroying Knothole in the process. Using his speed, Sonic grabs the robot and takes off, but then a kaboom is heard, as it looks like poor Sonic didn't make it. But it's later revealed that Sonic is alive and well, as he was fast enough to get the bomb out of Knothole before it exploded. While he was up there, he then noticed a blimp that obviously belongs to Robotnik, and thinks the blimp has the emeralds. So Sally orders Sonic and Antoine to go after it, as this mission is too dangerous for one freedom fighter. The duo hop into a hot air balloon and fly up to the blimp, only to find themselves surrounded by buzz bombers and bat brains, destroying their ride. Sonic manages to do his spin job and destroys the badniks, making his way to the blimp and destroying it along the way. As the duo lands safely to the ground, they find one of the Freedom Emeralds from a dismantled SWAT bot. It's later revealed by the SWAT bot that the emeralds have been scattered to air, sea, land, and underground. Now that they have the one from the air, Sonic tells Antoine to get the emerald back to Knothole, as Sonic continues the search alone. So Sonic heads out to find the emerald in the sea as he passes Tails, but Tails' fishing pole gets stuck on Sonic's shoe and goes along with the ride. As Sonic swims down to the caverns from last issue, he notices Tails has been dragged along, but then Jaws pops up attacking them, trying to get his revenge at Sonic from last time. So the two freedom fighters swim to the cavern and luckily find the second Freedom Emerald, but things don't look good as Jaws has them cornered and charges at them. But it turns out he charged into a drawing on a wall that Tails was able to sketch out quickly with his waterproof marker. Wonder how he carries that thing around with no pockets. Maybe he has it in his shoe or something. As they reach the surface, Sonic tells Tails to take the emerald back to Knothole, as we see Robotnik instructing a SWAT bot the next step of the plan, on a device that looks like a combination of a power glove and a Game Gear. So the SWAT bot's about ready to hide the emerald, but Sonic comes in and takes it, but it turns out it was all a trap as Sonic falls down a trap door, where a barrel bot is waiting with one emerald and takes the other one from Sonic. He lunges in for an attack, but Sonic dodges it and runs off, but the barrel bot drills through his way and cuts him off. But Sonic manages to outwit him with his speed and get the emeralds back, now that he has all 4 emeralds. But unfortunately, Sonic finds himself lost after running through the catacombs for hours. Then, Sonic has a sudden epiphany. Using all his strength, Sonic uses his spin move to tunnel his way up, and luckily ends up back at Mobius in Boomer's workshop. Now that the emeralds are back to where they're supposed to be, Sally is crowned and will use their power to defeat Robotnik and save Mobius. And this would be the end, until Robotnik barges in and rants about how he started this whole thing but only made one lousy cameo on a monitor. It's pretty funny seeing Robotnik break the fourth wall. It's very similar to an off-panel in one of the Sonic Universe issues where Eggman Nega, aka Dr. Nega, rants about how he started the story for Treasure Team Tango, but Sega is too stubborn to give him an official appearance in the comics. Anyway, on to issue 3, the last issue in the original miniseries. The first story starts off with Sonic being courted by some crab meats, as Robotnik swoops down attacking Sonic, sending him to his doom. As Sonic crashes, he gets back up feeling dizzy, only to fall back down again and pass out, as we begin Sonic Flashback, or what if Sonic and Robotnik were kids together, as we see Sonic destroying some crab meats, and Robotnik swears he'll roboticize Sonic one day, and also mentions his Uncle Chuck. Sonic and Robotnik both remember how Chuck was the reason for their origins, as we jump to a flashback of Chuck being an inventor, making some power rings. We see a young Sonic running up to Chuck, telling him that Robotnik is being mean as usual. But Chuck tells Sonic that he's helping Robotnik get used to being here, as he came from a broken down home, and with that said, we see Robotnik as a young boy building mechanical toy soldiers, and he still looks ugly as he is now. As Sonic and Robotnik can never see eye to eye, Sonic speeds off to practice his running, hoping to become the fastest thing on Mobius. As Chuck is putting away the tractor, Robotnik continues ordering his mechanical toys to do as he says, but then the tractor goes haywire and crashes right into Robotnik, leaving them out cold. Sonic returns to find Chuck and Robotnik badly damaged from the crash, and so Sonic and a surviving toy soldier use the magic of the power ring to increase his speed and race them to the hospital, and they were able to save them in time. Chuck is thankful for Sonic's bravery, but Robotnik is still mad at Chuck for almost killing him. The surviving toy soldier explains to the hedgehogs that it was Robotnik's fault for removing the brake mechanism and using them for his toy soldiers. Chuck sends Robotnik to his room as Sonic helps his uncle in making more power rings. After making around 1100 rings, they decide to take a break, but in comes Robotnik with his latest creation, a robot made of all the household appliances in the house. The robot grabs Chuck as they leave to find the nearest cliff to drop Chuck. Sonic grabs hold of an old garden hose, wraps it around the robot's legs, thus making it lose its balance and crash to the ground, destroying itself. Robotnik then runs away as we see Sonic wake up from his fall as the chase begins once again with Robotnik. In the second story, YS Spy, Sonic is called in by Sally only to find out that Boomer, or Rotor, has been turned into a robot. But it turns out it was just a fake, as Rotor explains that it was just a pair of clip-on jaws and a pair of swirling contacts. And so they decide to try it on Sonic and test it out if it works. And it does, as it fools Tails into thinking Sonic's a robot, and manages to fool Robotnik as well. But Robotnik is still not convinced and demands that Robot Sonic to tell him where the location of Knothole is. Sonic is in hot water when suddenly an alarm is sprung as something is wrong with the crab meat compound. So Sonic heads over there to see Sally and Antoine are waiting. Sonic slows down, but stops too fast and sends his snap-on jaws at Antoine. My, what an unfortunate accident. Sonic confirms that he fooled Robotnik as they continue with their plan, blow up the crab meat factory. As Sonic walks in, he's surprised seeing his Uncle Chuck there, who has been roboticized, even though he still looks like he's been hypnotized. Sonic tries to snap him out of it, but Chuck calls in Mutsky, who actually looks like a roboticized creature. So if they can make Mutsky look like a roboticized creature, why not do the same thing to Uncle Chuck? Maybe Robotnik was just too cheap in operating the roboticizer. Anyway, Sonic can't blow up the crab meat factory and decides to go with Plan B as he rushes back to Robotnik. He tells Sonic to enter the location of Knothole into the homing missile, and so he does. But it turns out that he didn't aim it at Knothole, and actually typed in locations for the Buzz Bomber factory, which is one of Robotnik's largest factories. So even though Sonic wasn't able to save his uncle, he was able to do some damage to Robotnik's factories, and made sure he got what's coming to him in the end. And that concludes the original miniseries. The series is like a pilot episode, as it's more of a combination of Sad AM Sonic and Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, with its art styles, gags, and storylines, since the comic was around when the shows were still on. When the main series started, the original miniseries was not canon to the story, but several elements did end up in the main series. A good example is that the Crown of Acorns would be redesigned and given more of a bigger role, and that the explanation of Sally's different color schemes would eventually be explained in Knuckles the Echidna Comics issue 29. The issues would be reprinted onto other comic collections, such as issue 0 being part of Sonic's Firsts, a collection of various Sonic stories, which would later be reprinted as Sonic Super Special number 3. The entire miniseries would later be reprinted into Sonic the Hedgehog, The Beginning. The very nice cover design. Uncle Chuck looks like a robot, we see all three color schemes of Sally, and it gives it that classic look. Although Antoine's weapon is looking weird, I know it's supposed to be a sword, but it looks like he took a rubber chicken and glued it onto a flashlight. And then when the Sonic Archives started, they would later reprint this issue into Sonic Archives Volume 0. That's pretty interesting how the first Archie Sonic stories have gotten a lot of reprints. It might seem cheesy today, but it did help get the Archie Sonic series get started, and continue the series making it better as it is today. Well, that wraps up this review. More Archie Sonic comic reviews are on the way in the future, so until then, this is Melting Man 234 signing out.